The most famous catalog of Japanese demons is younger than the United States. It was printed in 1776, bound in soft paper, sold in shops to ordinary people in a country at peace. Almost every creature you have ever seen labeled as ancient Japanese folklore passed through that book or through the three that followed it. That is not the strange part. The strange part is what came before it. Because if you go looking for the older layer, the deep one, the one that is supposed to be there, it thins out fast. There are documents, there are scrolls, there is a dictionary from the 10th century, but there is no list. Someone had to make the list, and the man who did it was not a priest, not a monk, and not a keeper of any tradition. Start with the word everyone uses. Yokai translations reach for demon, monster, spirit, goblin, apparition. None of them holds. A yokai can be a mountain that eats travelers or a paper umbrella that hops on one leg. It can be the feeling of being watched in a room you know is empty. It can be a sound in a house with nothing in it. That range is not sloppiness in the translation. It is what the category actually is. The word covers strangeness itself, and strangeness does not sort into species. So when a video hands you 100 creatures with names and habits, understand what you are being handed. Not a bestiary that was found, a bestiary that was built, and built recently enough that we can watch it happen. That is unusual. Most demonologies fade into a period where the documents run out and the guessing begins. This one does not. Every stage of it left paper behind: a dictionary, a legal code, a tale collection, a painted scroll, 4 printed books, and a university lecture. We are going to walk those in order, oldest first, and you will see the shape change as we go. Here is the fact that reorganizes everything else. For most of Japanese history, there was no single word that gathered these beings together. People spoke of Oni. They spoke of Mononoke. They spoke of things that happen at a crossroads after dark, but they were not filing them under one heading because there was no heading. The umbrella term came late, very late. Late enough that the man responsible has a birth date, a university, and a stated reason for doing it, and his reason was the opposite of what you would expect. Hold on to that. We come back to him at the end, and he changes what all of this was for. Start with the oldest word, and it already contradicts the picture in your head. You know the Oni, red or blue skin, horns, an iron club, a tiger skin loincloth. That image is real, and it is late. The Wamyo Ruijusho is a Japanese dictionary from the 930s. It explains the word Oni as a corruption of on, a character meaning to hide, the thing that hides, the thing that does not want to be seen. In the older doctrines of the court, Oni named an invisible force that made people sick. No horns, no club, no skin color because there is no skin. The body came later from painters and from Buddhist hell imagery, and then it swallowed the word whole. That is the pattern for everything that follows. The image arrives and the image wins. Once a thing has been drawn, the drawing is what people remember, and the older definition quietly stops being consulted. Keep the sequence in mind as we go. Word first, doctrine second, picture third, catalog fourth, and the umbrella that holds them together arrives last of all, more than 1,000 years after the word. Japan did not treat this material as village superstition. It treated it as government work. In 718, the Yoro Code established the Onmyoryo, the Bureau of Onmyo, as a department of the Ministry of the Center. Its staff kept the calendar. They watched the sky for portents. They marked the hours. They performed the rites that were meant to turn misfortune aside. The practitioners, the Onmyoji, were civil servants with ranks and salaries. Divination was a technical office like surveying or accounting. The most famous of them, Abe no Seimei, was a real official inside that apparatus. Everything you have heard about him commanding spirits comes from stories written afterwards, which matters because it tells you where the demons lived in the Japanese mind, not in a folk memory. In the paperwork of a functioning state, that has a consequence people skip. A bureau does not need a bestiary. It needs directions, which day is unlucky, which gate faces the wrong way, which right answers which omen. The court cared enormously about the invisible and produced almost nothing that looks like a creature list. The concern was procedure, not zoology. The stories arrive in bulk in a collection called the Kanjaku Monogatari Rishu, more than 1,000 tales from India, China, and Japan. Buddhist parables next to accounts of thieves, and threaded through the encounters. Tradition says a nobleman named Minamoto no Takakuni compiled it at his retreat. Scholars do not accept that. Several tales describe events that happened after he died. The likely date is the first half of the 12th century, and the compiler is unknown. 3 theories, no consensus, no name. In those tales you meet the procession. A crowd of things moving down a street at night, and the rule is simple. If you are outside when it passes, you do not survive the encounter. Notice what the tales do not do. They do not name the members of the procession. Nobody in the 12th century is counting. Hold on to one thing here. Up to this point, none of it is a list. Then comes an idea that anyone who has watched a Japanese animation will recognize. Objects that survive long enough stop being objects. The source is a medieval tale called the Tsukumogami Kai from the Muromachi period. In it, containers, tools, and instruments reach nearly 100 years of service and receive souls. Then they take their revenge on the households that threw them away. The word carries the number. Tsukumo can be written with the characters for 99, but the reading that scholars give this text is not folklore at all. It reads as Buddhist instruction, a story built to teach a doctrinal point about attachment and impermanence, using haunted kitchenware to do it. A parable written by someone with an argument to make, not a report of what farmers believed, and there is one creature waiting further ahead that will not even have this much. No story, no source, not one line of text. So where is the ancient catalog? Here's the honest answer, and it closes the question this video opened with. The oldest surviving depiction of the night procession is a hand scroll kept at Shinjuin, a subtemple of Daido Kujai in Kyoto. It is dated to the first half of the 16th century. The 16th century, not the 8th, not the 10th, and it may itself copy an older model that no longer exists, which is a possibility, not a document. It is often attributed to a famous court painter. That attribution is probably wrong, and the specialists say so. Look at who is actually in that procession, and it is stranger than the word demons suggests. A great many of the marchers are objects, instruments, vessels, pieces of armor, all of them walking. The parade that Japan's oldest surviving monster picture shows is largely a parade of discarded household goods, the Tsukumogami idea, given bodies and put on a road. So the deep layer holds words, doctrines, tales, and a bureau of the state. What it does not hold is the illustrated lineup. That arrives in the 16th century as a picture, and pictures are the thing that spreads. Copies of that scroll multiply over the following 2 centuries. Painters reproduce it, vary it, add figures. The procession becomes a standard subject before any of its members has a fixed name. 2 centuries later, Japan changes shape, and the change is what makes the catalog possible. The country is at peace under the Tokugawa, cities swell. Literacy spreads past the samurai class and into merchants, artisans, and their households. And woodblock printing turns a book from a commissioned object into a product. 1 carved block, 1,000 impressions, sold cheap. That combination creates something Japan had not had before, a paying audience for the strange. Ghost stories become entertainment. Summer gatherings burn 100 candles and tell 100 tales, blowing 1 candle out after each. Those gatherings have a name, Hyakumonogatari Kaidenkai, the 100-tale gathering, and the 100 is the same 100 as in the parade. A number that means many, used as a game. Cheap illustrated books spread alongside them. Comic ones, frightening ones, some of both at once, sold to people who read for entertainment after work. The demand is there, and it is commercial. What the market wants next is reference, something with the creatures organized, drawn, and named. This is where Japanese demonology becomes an index. Toriyama Sekien lived from 1712 to 1788. He was a painter, trained in an established school, and he did something nobody had done. He produced illustrated encyclopedias of the creatures. 1 per page, drawn in a consistent style, most with a short caption placing the thing in a setting. 4 books, 1776, the Gazu Hayaki Yagio, 1779, 1781, and 1784 for the last one. 8 years, and the shape of the whole field is set. Anyone who draws a kappa today is drawing downstream of those pages. Consider what that format does. Before Sekien, meeting one of these beings meant hearing a story, a place, a night, a person it happened to, told by someone who claimed to know. After Sekien, it means looking something up. The encounter becomes an entry. The creature stops being an event that happened to a traveler and becomes an item with a picture. That shift is the whole subject of this video, and it happened in one decade, in one workshop, in a commercial print trade. Sekien did not invent his material out of nothing, and it would be unfair to say he did. He worked from literature, from folklore, from earlier scrolls and paintings. Creatures already in circulation, the kappa, the tengu, the cat with a forked tail, go into the books with their traditions attached. What he added was uniformity. Same page size, same line weight, same treatment for a river creature and a household ghost. That is the quiet thing this did. A tradition that had been local, contradictory, and uneven became a set of items with equal weight, and a reader could hold all of them at once. The title of the first book borrows the old procession, the night parade, the 100 demons, but 100 here is the way Japanese says a great many. It was never a census. Now the thing promised earlier, open the first book and find the imagery. A long segmented body, claws like shears. The name means net cutter. Beside it on the page there is nothing, no caption, no story, no place, no province, no source. And when researchers go looking for the imagery outside Sekien's book, they do not find it. There is no attested tradition before him. The Yokai researcher Katsumi Tada has proposed a reading. Ami means net. Ami is also the name of a very small shrimp. The creature may be a visual pun drawn for the joke. That is an interpretation, not a proven fact. What is not in dispute is the absence. The record before the book is empty, and the imagery did not stay on that page. It went on into later books, into modern encyclopedias, into games and cartoons, carrying an air of ancient menace it may have picked up entirely from being drawn well. The problem is not what Sekien may have made up. Every illustrator adds. The problem is that he did not separate. Inside those 4 volumes, 3 different kinds of things sit side by side, drawn identically. There is genuine old material, traceable to medieval texts and earlier images. There is regional folklore, alive in one province and unheard of in the next, and there is whatever the imagery is. The book gives them all the same border, the same ink, the same authority. A reader in 1780 had no way to tell them apart. Neither does a reader today without going behind the page. That is why the modern lists all agree with each other. They are not agreeing because the tradition was uniform. They are agreeing because they share one source. Later artists built on him rather than replacing him. In the 20th century, the manga artist Mizuki Shigeru carried the same creatures to a national audience, working from Sekien and from the folklorists who came between. Which is why the modern image of a Japanese monster is so consistent and so confident. It has been copied forward through 3 centuries of illustration, each generation trusting the last. None of that makes the creatures less interesting. It relocates them. They are not a survival from an unrecorded past. They are a record of what successive centuries found worth drawing. Then the country changes again, and this time the creatures are a problem. The Meiji era opens Japan to Western science, industry, and law. The new state wants a modern population, and modern populations are not supposed to believe in things in the road at night. Superstition becomes something to be measured, explained, and dissolved. And the man who takes on that work builds the tool we are still using. It is worth noticing how that project has to begin. To argue against a class of belief, you first have to define the class. You need a word that gathers all of it under one heading, which is exactly what 1,000 years of Japanese writing had never bothered to supply. The tales did not need it. The Bureau did not need it. The Catalogue sold fine without it. His name was Onmyoryo. He lived from 1858 to 1919, a Buddhist philosopher and the founder of Toyo University. He created a field of study and called it Yakegaku, monsterology, and he made yokai the technical term that covered every strange and mysterious phenomenon. Then he spent his working life writing essays that took those phenomena apart. rationally one at a time, looking for the ordinary cause underneath each report. He was not preserving them. He was building the vocabulary to clear them away, and the vocabulary outlasted the argument. Within a generation, folklorists were using his word to record what he had wanted recorded only in order to dismiss it. By the middle of the 20th century, Yokai names a genre. By now it names an industry: films, games, museum exhibitions, a tourist trail through the towns that claim one. A reading worth sitting with, the umbrella term that lets us discuss these beings as a single subject, was made by someone whose stated purpose was to end belief in them. The classification survived, the intention did not, so the shape of it is this. The deep layer is real, and it is mostly words. A dictionary from the 930s that says the oldest name means hidden. A bureau established in 718 that treated the invisible as state business. A 12th century collection whose compiler nobody can name, carrying tales of a procession you were not supposed to meet. The visual layer is younger, a 16th century handscroll for the parade. 4 printed books between 1776 and 1784 for the Catalogue, and the frame around all of it is younger still, a Meiji philosopher's word, borrowed from the effort to dissolve the whole subject. None of which makes any of it fake, it makes it traceable. You can name the document, the century, and most of the time the person holding the brush. That is more than most demonologies can offer. The Western grimoires make the same claims to antiquity, and we went through those in an earlier video. Who wrote the list of entities and when? It is linked below. The creatures outlived the man who came to explain them away, and they kept the name he gave them.